is. And the real enemy is the Tea Party. The Tea Party Congress Party. There is no compromising with them. They have one goal in mind, and that's to make President Obama a one-term president.
That, cowpokes, was Congresswoman Frederica Wilson of the great state of Florida at a Congressional Black Caucus town hall talking about who the real enemy is. And this is Power Play. Thanks for sticking around, Internet. We are having a great time today, and we are joined now by Christy Setzer. She is the president of New Heights Communications. She's the former Iowa press secretary for Vice President Al Gore. She's a Democratic strategist, and she's an awesome person. That's what it says on the Internet. I looked it up. And we also have Ford O'Connell. He is a former McCain-Palin presidential campaign advisor. He is the chairman of Civic Forum PAC. He's a Republican dude. He's Coke. He's Coke. She's Pepsi. He's a SUV. She's a Prius. You know the routine. You're aware of how this goes. Don't make me spell it all out for you. But I listened to Congresswoman Wilson. I listened to the state of the debate, and I'm not any shrinking violet. I think that we way overblow the stuff about, the quality of the discourse. The discourse has always stunk. We are always mean to each other because we're having a battle of ideas in this country constantly. So I don't blush about that. But I look ahead, folks, and I see we've got the end of the current fiscal year spending on September 30th. We have this debt and deficit commission. We have the expiration of the gas tax. We have all of these huge, painful things that are going to happen. And if we're down to you're a terrorist, the Tea Party is the real enemy, you're holding the nation hostage, how are we going to do anything, Christy?
Yeah. So first of all, I have to agree that certainly no one in America wants this level of discourse. They're looking at Washington and they're saying we have serious issues right now. We've got a 9% unemployment rate. As you said, we have many important issues coming out to address. And they're looking at these Washington leaders treating each other like children. But one thing that I think that has contributed to this in large measure is the fact that President Obama has not been able to rely on the Republican Party, and particularly the Republican Party leadership, as led by the Tea Party, to be a willing partner on his policy initiatives.
But now wait a minute. Now John Boehner has taken nothing but hell from his people because he's been trying to be grown up and he's been engaging in these discussions and going through. Isn't that true?
Well, the one thing that the Congresswoman got wrong in that, the clip that you just showed is that it isn't in fact the Tea Party who said they wanted to make President Obama one-term president. It was the Republican Party leadership. It was Mitch McConnell.
That's right. That's right.
So, this is obviously something that's throughout the Republican Party leadership right now. It's not just Eric Cantor. It's not just Michelle Bachmann. It's actually John Boehner and Mitch McConnell as well.
So, it's easy to see the subtle pleasure that Republicans take at the suffering of President Obama. When you see how President Obama is flailing and in this very difficult time, he is at a 38% job approve in the Gallup, things are down, you start to see how folks like Congresswoman Wilson and others would say Republicans are actually rooting for the country to fail because it'll hurt Barack Obama.
Well, that's not true. Republicans aren't rooting for the country to fail. At the end of the day, we all want to see the country succeed. We want to see the unemployment rate go down. That said, I think a lot of Democrats realize that they're on pins and needles, they're on the ropes, and they're grasping at straws. At the end of the day, Republicans really only control 1/3 of the government. So really, President Obama and the Senate Democrats really have to take some leadership, and they're going to have to compromise because at the end of the day, both parties are on the line and Americans are hurting.
Now, what happens, though, when we have three huge chasms that Congress is going to have to walk over before the end of the year? They have to continue to fund the government after September 30th. They have to deal with the expiration of the gas tax, which if they don't renew, means that there's no money to pave the streets. And then third, they have, around Thanksgiving, they're going to have this super committee on the debt do it. Let's say that Tea Partiers who have been incensed by the rhetoric that's been coming out of the CBC during this recess, just so angry over this stuff. If they come back and say, you know what, no, this is how you treat us, this is how you talk to us, we're not doing any business with you, and we're going to walk away. Doesn't this sort of set the Republicans up to fulfill the prophecy that the president made?
It does to an extent, but at the end of the day, I think that a lot of Tea Partiers recognize how much America's hurting, and if a wise compromise is made on all of the issues, including the super committee, because I honestly think that if all we get is mandatory cuts on the super committee, we may face another downgrade, and that's going to hurt all Americans. It's not about hurting Americans, and it's not about winning the White House. It's about putting America back on the right track and putting people back to work, and that's really what we got to do.
Christy, the president needs to get a handle on some of this in his party, though, doesn't he? Because his brand, when he ran in 2008, the brand he's trying to restore is about civility, good discourse, being cerebral, being able to bring people together. If we're down to the real enemy is the Tea Party, the Obama brand's not working. How's he going to get this narrative changed?
Well, I mean, to give some credence again to what the Congresswoman was saying, I think that what troubles people the most about some of the discourse coming out of the Tea Party is that they seem not particularly committed to any kind of ideology so much as just the destruction of the establishment in Washington, to the extent that at times it seems they don't care who they hurt. I mean, I think a perfect example was again the debate over the default crisis, where you have people like Eric Cantor and Michelle Bachmann saying, let the country go into default. That's the sort of extremist position and language that I don't think that most Americans buy into, and that certainly makes it quite difficult for President Obama to, as you said, get back to usual discourse.
And I understand. I mean, I understand that part. But what I'm saying is, this is the Congressional Black Caucus. I know they're angry at him because they don't think that Obama has done enough to help alleviate unemployment and things in the black community. But at some point, doesn't he? I mean, they've been out on this. They've been on a road trip, basically going out there just throwing bombs. Unemployment's high because of racism. The damn the Tea Party to hell, said Maxine Waters. Doesn't the president have to get like a conference call together and be like, chill out?
I think it's overblown, right? I mean, I think at the end of the day, they will come back into the party fold. I don't think they've actually left the party fold. I do think that, but there's genuine anger at the president for what looks like his having given in to Republicans on, a lot of their different policy positions. And so I think that they're absolutely in the right to be angry with him and to show that there's real differences between the parties.
Is Boehner going to have trouble on his hands when he gets back? Are Tea Partiers going to be more riled up, do you think, after having heard all this stuff?
Well, I think they're going to hold his feet to the fire. But Boehner has to show the same kind of leadership he showed last time and say, hey, if we do get a wise compromise, we're going to have to take it. But, make sure to hold me accountable, and I'm going to hold the president accountable, is sort of your intermediary. And if that occurs, I think that we're going to get, back on the right track. But again, we're going to take baby steps. Unemployment is not going to reach 8% anytime soon. We really have to be wise about how we move forward, whether it's spending, whether it's cuts, whether it's, whether or not we should include subsidies, and further them. So, I mean, those are the types of things that Boehner really has to think about.
Well, we'll be here to score the fight, I promise. And thank you, folks, for being with us. A real pleasure.